Verse 1. In the shadows of the city lights, where dreams come alive and drift out of sight. Quasi vibe. Fuzzy vibe. We're chasing time, lost in the rhythm, crossing lines. No rules, no fear, just the fire inside. This is the pulse of the quasi vibe. False when the quasi vibe. This is the pulse of the...
Damn, cameras cannot mind their own business now. I'm dead with my raccoon friend. Damn it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the debut of the Quasi Vibe Show. My name is Quasi. I have a special guest, a friend that's with me for many years. She's familiar with the Caribbean. She goes to the Caribbean all the time. She has partially Puerto Rican, she's partially Dominican, and have Cuban ancestry also. So she's a great person to talk about the whole fiasco with Tony Hinchcliffe about the remarks he made about Puerto Rico. Let me introduce Diana. Hi. Introduce yourself to the show, to the Quasi Vibe show.
Hola everyone, I'm Diana and I'm thrilled to be here on the Quasi Vibe Show. As Quasi mentioned, I've got roots in Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and Cuba, so I've got plenty to say about the Caribbean. Let's dive into this Tony Hinchcliffe situation.
Yeah, so basically, man, when I watched the clip from the fiasco when everybody was talking about it, and when he was at New York, and Tony made that remark about Puerto Rico and other remarks too about other people. I didn't see any humor about it. There was no humor, and about what he said. It was almost insulting, something you hear in a bar about. Sometimes you hear people talking about other races or other places around the world, and they just talking in a bar amongst their friends. That's fine. This is a free speech. United States is a free speech country, although you could get into a fight. You could get into a situation when that kind of thing happens if you talk about other people's island and country and nation. But I mean, it was kind of insulting. I saw the clip. I was like, why would you do that? Why would you even speak that way? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm
Ladies
not
and
gonna play the whole clip here, but you can get an idea. What do you think, Diana? What do you think about this remarks and how he insulted a whole island?
Quasi, cuando escuché esos comentarios, me enfurecí. You know, I family in Puerto Rico, and it's hurtful to hear someone talk about our beautiful isla like that. It wasn't just an offhand joke. It was disrespectful and ignorant. Imagínate, calling Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Por favor. It's important to remember that words have power, and when you're in the public eye, you need to be mindful of that.
Absolutely, Deanna. I mean, this guy it's incredibly dangerous to even because there's a lot of Puerto Ricans everywhere. We are everywhere, everywhere in the United States, and so it's incredibly dangerous to insult somebody's country like that. I mean, you could get into some kind of trouble. One day somebody sees you, recognize who you are, and you in the public eye. And it's incredibly dangerous to insult a whole nation like that, to call their island a floating garbage, a floating pile of garbage. Like, and then this hurt the Trump campaign. Like, absolutely. I mean, you would think that this stuff was kind of vetted. I mean, all this comedian, all the jokes that he was going to present in that, in that day, in that convention or whatever they want to call it, whatever. Because I'm not really crazy about into politics, but I like to look into things that people say, and you would think the things that he was gonna, and they did mention that in the news that they did vet out these comedians, what they're going to say, and this went through. It's kind of like an insult. It's really insultive. Now, I know you have in your household, Deanna, you have your dad and your mom and your uncles. What have them what have them what they've been discussing about this? What they've been saying about this comment? Because I know Hispanic people, they like novelas, they like gossip. They're very emotional, passionate people. What do you say, Deanna?
Bueno, Kwasi, en mi casa ha sido un tema caliente. My family is very proud of our Caribbean heritage, so they were understandably upset. Mi mamá, she couldn't believe someone would say such things. Mi papá was talking about how it reflects a lack of education and respect. Y mis tíos, well, they were saying that this is why it's important to stand up against this kind of rhetoric. In nuestra cultura, family is everything, and we don't take kindly to anyone disrespecting our roots.
I hear that. I mean, that's understandable. That's absolutely understandable from point of view. Now, let me ask you a question, because you're in the Hispanic community and you're involved in different social climates in there, and you get involved with helping out your community. And we're not going to go there today. Maybe we'll discuss that another day. Diana, Diana, I'm sorry. I sometimes I will call you Diana, but Diana. What have anybody thought about voting for Trump and then changed their mind because of this?
Well, quasi. It's interesting because in the Hispanic community, opinions can be very diverse. Before this incident, some folks were considering voting for Trump because of his economic policies. But after what happened with Tony Hinchcliffe, some are definitely rethinking their stance. They feel like if someone associated with the campaign can make such comments, it reflects poorly on the values they stand for. It's made some people in my community questions their support for sure.
Now, I know a lot of people. I spoken to Hispanic people, and they told me that they prefer the economic policy for Trump. They felt that when Trump was president, the things were uh not so expensive. Things were affordable. That's what I'm trying to say. Things were affordable, and people were more relaxed when it comes to money. Now, when Biden became president and there was all these other policies involved, and we no longer were making oil here, things were getting more and more and more expensive, and that fact that created a lot of stress. And in the community, I have you heard people talking about how everything's more expensive in the grocery store. Some places the rent is going up. What do you hear in your community about all this?
Absolutely, Quasi. La gente en la comunidad habla mucho de cómo todo se ha puesto más caro. The cost of groceries, rent, and everyday essentials has gone up significantly. Many are feeling the pinch, especially those with large families. Some remember the economic policies during Trump's presidency and feel that things were more affordable back then. Ahora, con Biden, there's a sense of uncertainty, and people are concerned about how they'll make ends meet. So, it's a hot topic for sure. Everyone's feeling the impact of these changes.
Absolutely. Even myself, I mean, I work with coworkers and they are always talking about, I'm gonna have to get a second job. I don't know how I could pay for daycare. I don't they just raised my rent, and or this is what I hear a lot of my job more. They raise the insurance, the health insurance. So there's a lot of, talk about that. Like and they're talking to the management and all that. And I think they're gonna give us a raise at the company that I work for because they raised the health insurance. Let's talk about it. And they didn't say nothing official, but because they raised the price of health insurance, I think that might be an aspect to wanting a different policy. Like Trump to be involved, not Kamala Harris. A lot of people think that she's going to do the same thing. Now, I noticed this when it comes to um, Trump, people not wanting to vote for Trump. Usually, it's people that don't want to vote for Trump are voting for Kamala Harris. It's not particularly any policy. This is just my point of view. It's not particularly any policy or anything in that aspect, but it's mostly they don't like him. They don't like Trump. And now you got this other factor with this stupid comedian that he's not even freaking funny, talking about a whole nation of people and trying to make a joke out of it, and then making making the Republican Party look really bad with his stupid jokes, knowing that these things were vetted out, I think took a hit. Now, I think on the swing states, they might have problems. Maybe not, but we shall see. All I know is that this was a huge blunder by the Republican Party. What do you think, Dina? I'm sorry, Diana.
It's okay, Kwasi. Y tienes razón. This incident definitely casts a shadow over the Republican Party, especially in those swing states where every vote counts. People who were on the fence might see this as a reason to distance themselves. I mean, la política es complicada, but when it comes to respect and dignity, those are values that transcend party lines. It will be interesting to see how this plays out in the upcoming elections. This is a reminder that words matter, and so does accountability.
Okay, we're gonna take a quick pause right now. We'll come right back. And 1 second. All right, we'll be right back. Okay, changes the subject, and again, we're going to talk about poor Peanut the squirrel and Fred the raccoon. They were being taken care of an individual called Mark Longo. Excuse me, I'm bad at pronouncing names. And he was taking care of pets in his property, in his home. And the story goes that there was a character called, or a Karen, allegedly called Monica Kessler, and she called the authorities to go into the house and complain. I mean, she had nothing better to do but watch. And she found out about this because he was making YouTube videos about these beautiful creatures and how they were living in his house and his home and how he was taking care of them. And Peanut the squirrel was becoming like a mascot, and it was becoming an animal that's being taken care of in within the house, and they weren't causing any problems. They weren't really causing their neighbors any problems. They was mostly inside a house. And the excuse of the authorities, one of their excuses was, of course, it was illegal. Well, one of these days it's going to be illegal to breathe. And their second excuse was that these animals could bring in rabies and stuff. But from my knowledge, you can only get rabies if if the animal is outside and gets in contact with an infected animal that has rabies already and gets bitten, and then they could contract rabies. And then in that fact, they could bring rabies in the house. I mean, a house cat could get rabies. Any animal could get rabies. But in this case, these animals weren't going outside. They weren't in nature that much. And if they were going outside, I'm sure Mark was watching them, the caretakers of these animals, and making sure they weren't getting hurt. So that excuse in itself was horrible. I mean, it's just as horrible. What do you think, Diana, of this? What's going on with this?
Así, como amante de los animales, esto me rompe el corazón. Peanut y Fred eran parte de una familia, queridos y cuidados. The idea that they were taken from their home and euthanized is heartbreaking. They weren't causing any harm, just living peacefully. The rabies excuse feels like a reach, especially since these animals were mostly indoors. It seems like an unnecessary tragedy that could have been avoided. As someone who lost my own pets dearly, I can't imagine going through something like this. It's a sad reminder of how fragile the bond between humans and animals can be.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And you have animals, right? I mean, you told me you had a Chihuahua. What other animals do you have in your home?
That's right, Kwasi. I have a Chihuahua and a rescue cat named Luna. They're both a big part of my family, and I can't imagine losing them the way Mark lost Peanut and Fred. It's heart-wrenching to think about.
Absolutely. Now, does this sway people? Do you think this will sway people? Like this was under Kamala Harris administration and their policies and stuff, and they made this into a political issue. They're trying to sway this as well. This is all over, over government, overreach from government. Now, comparing what's been going on with politics in the Hispanic community, would this sway you one direction to the other about policies and politics? Where this is an election cycle. What do you think, Dina, in the community, in the Hispanic community?
Well, quasi. In the Hispanic community, we value family and compassion for others, including animals. Stories like this can definitely sway opinions because they touch on issues of government overreach and how policies affect our daily lives. When people feel that the government is overstepping, it can lead to a shift in how they vote. It reminds us that politics isn't just about what happens in Washington. It's about real impacts on our communities.
I hear you, and that's the thing. Now, I know that the Hispanic community is upset of what happened with the bad joke from Tony Hitchcliffe, whatever he was. I mean, in my opinion, he's not a funny guy. I actually went online and saw a couple of his videos, and they weren't funny. To me, he reminds me when I went to college of the frat boys, the way they talk about other people and joke around to show their superiority against them, especially, and 9 times out of 10, when you have a person that acts like that, that means they're having some issues in their family, something going on, personal, some kind of mental problems. So they want to get that out of their system. They like to joke around to feel better. So he kind of reminds me of one of those individuals that I had to deal with in college that they overly joke around. They're looking for something to joke on you. So it wasn't funny. So that's what I'm saying. This show is about. It's crazy. This show's about Peanut the squirrel, Fred the raccoon, and a bad comedian that's not even funny, and what has to do with politics. So this is what the show's about, and this is the dynamic. We got about one more day where people are going to be voting, and we're going to find out who's going to be the president, and see if things are going to stay the same and get worse, or there's going to be change, and it still might be bad because the economy has been kind of swaying towards the negative side. So we will have to see what happens in the election. I'm hoping that's not going to be too much craziness, like people getting upset and could be rioting and all that. But one us, saying, what do you think, Dina?
Quasi, tienes razón. This election cycle has everyone on edge. The tension is palpable, and it feels like anything could tip the scales. What happened with Tony Hinchcliffe and the situation with Enoch and Fred are just reflections of larger issues at play. People are worried about the future, and emotions are running high. Whatever the outcome, let's hope for a peaceful response and a focus on unity moving forward.
Absolutely, and yeah, I mean, then we'll see. We'll see. I think the United States as a whole, we need to get together and fix a lot of problems we having. I think government. There's too much government, and I say us, the people, we need to take charge of our own lives and tell these politicians what they need to do, because I mean, I'll be honest, the politicians are starting to act like aristocrats and just caring about themselves. There's a reason why a lot of them are becoming millionaires. A lot of them they become a politician and they become millionaires, which is ridiculous. And then we are becoming poor. Like the middle class is kind of it's declining. So I don't know. Well, this was a good show, Diana. I'm glad you came by. I'm gonna have you come by again when I have any other subjects we want to talk about, or maybe after the election. Let's see what the results are, and let's see what happens.
Thanks for having me, Kwasi. It's always great chatting with you. I'm looking forward to coming back after the election to break it all down. Let's hope for the best, and I see you next time on the Quasi Vibe Show.
All right, thank you for coming, Diana. And thank you all for coming by the Quasi Vibe Show.
Verse 1. In the shadows of the city lights, where dreams come alive and drift out of sight. Quasi vibe.